Daniel Hayes sat alone in his office at the top of Hayes Convenience headquarters, the faint glow of Riverdon skyline seeping through the wide window behind him. The city hummed below, a patchwork of neon signs and shadowed streets, but his attention was locked on the laptop screen, where an email sat open, its words glaring back at him like a quiet accusation. "Your stores are handy, sure, but I hear the big boss doesn't give a damn about the people running them." It read unsigned, just a raw jab from some customer who'd hit send and vanished. Daniel leaned closer, the lines on his forehead deepening as he scrolled through it again, the sting settling into him like a pebble in his shoe. At 45, he'd built Hayes Convenience from a single corner shop into a chain of dozens, a decade of sweat and vision turning a suburban dream into a Riverton staple. But tonight, that dream fell off, like a dish missing its key spice. He pushed the laptop back, running a hand through his dark hair, the strands starting to thin at the edges, a reminder of the years he'd poured into this. Hayes Convenience was his pride born from late nights counting inventory by hand, greeting every customer like family, crafting a place where people could grab a coffee or a snack and feel a little better for it. The reports were solid, sales climbing, customer feedback glowing, but this email, these whispers, gnawed at him. He stood, pacing to the window, the cool glass pressing against his palm as he stared down at the city. Rain streaked the streets, blurring the lights into a hazy mess, and his mind drifted back to the early day stocking shelves himself, chatting with regulars, knowing every name behind the counter. Now he was up here, drowning in spreadsheets, trusting managers to keep the pulse he used to feel firsthand. That pebble dug deeper, a quiet itch he couldn't ignore. The numbers said one thing, but what about the stuff that didn't make it to the reports? Did his crew feel valued, like he'd promised back when it was just him and a handful of hires? Was the service, the heart of Hayes Convenience, still what he built it to be? Daniel had always sworn he'd stay connected, hell. He'd jump behind the register himself when a cashier called out sick. But lately, he felt like a stranger looking in. The email wasn't the first hint. There'd been others, stray comments online, a text from an old friend. "Your stores are slick, man, but the vibe's slipping." He'd brushed them off as noise, but tonight they stacked up, loud and clear. He turned back to his desk, snatching his phone and dialing. Laura Kim, his assistant who'd been with him since the second store opened. She picked up on the first ring, her voice sharp despite the late hour. "Daniel? You good? Everything okay?" He grinned faintly. She always knew when something was brewing. "Yeah, Laura, I'm fine," he said, his tone dropping low. "Serious, but I need you to keep this on the down low. Clear my schedule tomorrow, no meetings, no calls, zip. And don't tell anybody I'm hitting the stores." A pause. Then her voice came back, curious but steady. "You're going stealth again, aren't you? What's up?" "I'm going undercover," Daniel said, already heading for the closet in the corner. "Gonna check out store 3, the busy one downtown. Need to see what's really happening out there, no filters." Laura let out a soft chuckle. "You sure? Last time you did this, you ended up mopping floors till midnight." Daniel laughed, pulling out a gray hoodie with frayed cuffs, the kind he'd worn before the suits took over. "That's the idea, fam. I want the unvarnished truth, how the crew's holding up, what the customers feel." "You in?" She sighed, but he could hear the grin in it. "Always. I'll shuffle things. Keep it tight. Anything else?" Daniel tugged the hoodie over his head, swapping his crisp button-up for the soft, warm cotton. "Just keep your phone handy," he said. "Might need you to pull some strings if this gets messy." He hung up, stepping back to check himself in the small mirror by the door. The hoodie hung loose, the jeans he grabbed were faded at the knees, and he traded his polished shoes for a pair of scuffed sneakers. He ran a hand over his jaw, the scruffy beard he'd let grow adding to the disguise. and topped it with a baseball cap, pulled low over his eyes. The Daniel Hayes of boardrooms and business mags was gone, replaced by some guy named Dave, just another face in the crowd. He smirked, grabbing his keys, not the ones to his sleek Lexus parked downstairs, but to an old Toyota he kept for low-profile runs. He slipped out of the office, nodding to the night security guard on his way to the elevator. "See you, man," he said, his voice casual, like he was just stepping out for a coffee. The guard waved back, clueless. Down in the garage, Daniel slid into the Toyota, the vinyl seats creaking under him, the faint scent of oil and dust a far cry from the leather of his usual ride. He fired up the engine, the rattle rough but steady, and pulled out into Riverton's rain-slicked streets, his mind already on Store 3. The drive was quick, the city blurring past in streaks of wet light as Daniel cut through downtown. Store 3 loomed ahead, its bright sign cutting through the drizzle, a squat, glass-fronted spot tucked between a laundromat and a pawn shop, the kind of place that never slept. He pulled into a side lot a block away, parking the Toyota under a flickering street lamp, far from the main entrance where regulars rolled up in a steady stream. He killed the engine, leaned back, and took it in. The place was hopping shadows moving behind the glass, the faint buzz of voices spilling out every time the door swung open. His chest tightened with a mix of pride and nerves. This was one of his first big wins, a top performer, but tonight he wasn't the boss. He was Dave, here to stack shelves and listen. Daniel adjusted his cap, the brim low enough to shadow his face, and stepped out into the rain, the damp soaking into his sneakers as he crossed the street. The air smelled of wet asphalt and fried snacks, a combo that hit him like a memory of opening day. He pushed through the front door, a small bell jingling overhead, and the noise of the store wrapped around him, beeping scanners, rustling bags. A low hum of chatter. The place was alive. Customers browsed the aisles, grabbing sodas and chips, while a couple of employees darted around, restocking coolers and sweeping up spills. Daniel felt a flicker of a smile, but it faded fast. Something felt off, a stiffness in the air he couldn't pin down, like a gear grinding just out of sync. He spotted the store manager, Clara Nguyen, near the counter, a middle-aged woman with a kind face and a clipboard tucked under her arm. Daniel approached, keeping his voice low, casual. "Hey, I'm Dave," he said, extending a hand. "Temp worker HQ sent me to help out." Clara's eyes lit up, her smile warm as she shook his hand. "Oh, perfect timing, Dave." "Where?" "Slam today. Come on, I'll get you started." She handed him a stack of boxes and pointed him toward the front shelves, her energy bright but rushed. Daniel nodded, hefting the load, and settled in near the counter, his eyes already scanning the room. His plan was simple: watch, talk, hear the truth. Whatever was simmering beneath the surface at Hayes Convenience, he'd find it here. And then, he'd figure that out when it hit him. Daniel Hayes crouched near the front shelves of Hayes Convenience, the cardboard boxes in his hands creaking as he stacked cans of soup under the hum of fluorescent lights. The store buzzed around him, Riverton's morning crowd weaving through the aisles, grabbing coffee, snacks, and last-minute essentials. The air carried a mix of fried dough from the hot case and the sharp tang of cleaning spray Clara Nguyen had spritzed on the counter earlier. Rain tapped the big windows, streaking the glass with a steady drip, but inside, the chaos of a busy day kept the place warm and alive. Daniel adjusted his cap, the brim low over his eyes, and let his gaze drift, taking it all in. Customers shuffled past, some in suits rushing to work, others in hoodies lingering over the candy rack, and the crew moved fast, restocking, ringing up sales, keeping the machine running. On the surface, it was everything he built this chain to be: quick, reliable, a lifeline. But that itch from the email still scratched at him, whispering that something wasn't right. He slid another can into place, his hands steady, but his ears tuned to the room. Clara hustled by, her clipboard tucked under her arm, barking a quick, "Keep it moving, Dave," as she darted to help a customer with a jammed coffee machine. Daniel nodded, playing the part of Dave, the temp worker, but his focus wasn't on the soup cans. It was on the chatter, the little threads of truth he'd come to pull loose. A stalker near the coolers muttered to a coworker, his voice low under the hum of the fridge. "HQ only cares about the cash. Don't give a damn if we're drowning out here." Daniel's jaw tightened, the words echoing that anonymous email. Doesn't give a damn about the people running them. Had he let it slip this far? He'd always told his managers to keep the crew tight, valued. But maybe the message hadn't stuck, or maybe he hadn't checked hard enough. He shifted to the next shelf, closer to the counter, where Ethan Brooks worked the register. Ethan caught his eye right off a young guy, early 20s, with a mop of dark hair and a grin that seemed to light up the cramped space. He was fast with the scanner, chatting up every customer like they were old friends. "Morning, Mrs. Carter House. The grandkid?" he asked the woman with a gallon of milk, his voice bright as he bagged her stuff. "Oh, growing too fast," she laughed, and Ethan shot back. "Tell him to stop by. I'll sneak him a candy bar." Daniel smirked, stacking a row of beans, impressed by the kid's ease. Ethan had that rare knack making people feel seen, not just served. It was the kind of thing Daniel had drilled into his early hires, back when he was the one behind the counter. But then, as Daniel bent to grab another box, a quieter exchange stopped him cold. An older man in a worn-out jacket shuffled up to the counter, his hands trembling slightly as he set down a small loaf of bread and a carton of milk. Ethan's grin softened, his voice dropping low. "Hey, Mrs. Foster, don't worry about the toll today. It's on me." The man Mrs. Foster froze, his gray eyes widening. "Ethan, I can't keep letting you do this," he said, his voice rough, hesitant. "You'll get yourself in trouble." Ethan leaned in, his tone a conspiratorial whisper. "It's fine, I've got this. You just take care of yourself, okay?" Mrs. Foster nodded, a quiet "thank you" slipping out as he took his bag and shuffled off. Head down. Daniel stood there, a can half lifted, his breath catching in his throat. What the hell was that? A cashier paying out of his own pocket for a customer? He blinked, replaying it in his head, making sure he hadn't misheard. Ethan didn't skip a beat, rang up the next person like nothing had happened. All smiles and small talk, but Daniel's mind spun. Why would he do that? Was it a one-off, some random act of kindness, or something more? He set the can down, slow, his hands moving on autopilot as he kept Ethan in his peripheral vision. Watching closer now. Asterisk over the next couple hours, it happened again and again. A single mom with 2 kids came through, buying a few basics, bread, peanut butter, a pack of juice boxes. Ethan scanned it all, then slipped an extra pack of cookies into her bag, his voice casual. "These are on sale. Don't worry about it." The woman didn't catch it, just nodded and left, but Daniel saw the flicker on Ethan's screen. No discount, no sale. He'd covered it. Then a scruffy guy in a construction vest, grabbing a sandwich and a soda. Ethan waved off the last. $1.50, muttering, "Close enough," and pulled coins from his own pocket to balance the till. Daniel's jaw dropped, hidden behind a stack of soup cans. This wasn't a fluke. It was a pattern, quiet and deliberate, like Ethan was running his own secret charity out of the register. Daniel's got twisted, part awe, part confusion. Ethan wasn't skimming or cheating. He was giving, straight from what little he must have had. Daniel had seen good employees before hell. He'd trained plenty, but this was something else. He needed to know why. He waited till the lunch rush thinned, then drifted toward Clara as she sorted receipts near the back. "Hey, Clara," he said, keeping his tone light, casual. "That kid at the register, Ethan, right? Seems like a solid guy. He been here long?" Clara looked up, her smile warm. "Oh, Ethan's a gem about a year now. Customers love him. Why, you see something?" Daniel shrugged, playing it cool. "Just noticed he's good with folks. Curious what his deal is." Clara nodded, flipping through her papers. "He's great, always on time, never complains. Don't know much else, though he keeps to himself outside work." She didn't see what he'd seen. Daniel thanked her and moved off, his mind buzzing. Clara was solid, but she'd missed this Ethan's quiet generosity slipping under her radar. He needed more. The day wore on, Daniel sticking close to the counter, stacking shelves and watching Ethan like a hawk. Every move confirmed it. Ethan wasn't just friendly. He was a lifeline for half the regulars. A teenage girl buying tampons got a discount. She didn't question. An old woman with shaky hands left with an extra bottle of water. Ethan didn't ring up. By late afternoon, Daniel couldn't take it anymore. He caught Ethan in the break room during a lull, the kid sipping a soda, his sneakers kicked up on a chair. Daniel slid in across from him, keeping his voice easy. "Hey, Ethan, I'm Dave. New guy. Noticed you helping a lot of folks out there today. What's that about?" Ethan blinked, caught off guard, then grinned, a little sheepish. "Oh, you saw that, huh? Yeah, some of 'em are struggling like Mrs. Foster, the old guy earlier. Lost his wife a while back, barely gets by on his pension. I just pitch in where I can. Ain't much, but it helps him out." Daniel leaned back, his throat tight, trying to keep his face neutral. "That's cool, man, but why your money? Ain't that tough on you?" Ethan shrugged, his grin fading a bit. "I manage. There's this single dad, two comes in with his kids. Sometimes can't cover it all. I'd rather they eat than me grab an extra coffee, you know?" Daniel nodded slow, a lump forming in his chest. Here was this kid couldn't be making more than minimum wage digging into his own pockets for strangers. It hit hard, a mix of admiration and something sharper, like guilt. He'd built Hayes Convenience to be a help, not a burden, but Ethan was out here doing more than he'd ever asked. "That's something else," Daniel said, his voice quieter than he meant. Ethan just smiled, brushing it off, and headed back to the register as the bell jingled with new customers. Daniel stayed put, staring at the dented table, his mind racing. Ethan's words stuck with him. I'd rather they eat, and the weight of it grew heavier the more he turned it over. Who was this kid, really? And how had he missed this kind of heart in his own store? He needed to know. If Ethan was an exception or a sign of something bigger slipping through his fingers. The day wasn't over, and neither was his digging. Whatever Ethan was hiding or carrying, Daniel would find it. This wasn't just a job anymore. It was personal. Daniel Hayes leaned against the break room table at Hayes Convenience, the dented metal cool under his palms, his cap pulled low as the echo of Ethan Brooks's words hung in the air. I'd rather they eat than me grab an extra coffee, Ethan had said, his tone casual, like it was no big deal, before slipping back to the register with that easy grin. But to Daniel, it was a thunderclap, a quiet, unassuming line that rattled everything he thought he knew about his store, his people, his whole damn chain. The hum of the store filtered through the thin walls, beeping scanners, rustling bags, Clara Nguyen's voice calling out an order, but it all faded to static as Daniel sat there, staring at the scuffed floor, his mind spinning. Ethan wasn't just good at his job. He was carrying a weight Daniel hadn't seen, a kindness that cut deeper than any sales report ever could. He pushed off the table, his sneakers silent on the tile as he drifted back to the floor, the late afternoon light slanting through the rain-streaked windows. The store was still hopping Riverton's after-work crowd trickling in for smokes, sodas, quick dinners, but Daniel's focus zeroed in on Ethan. The kid moved like clockwork, scanning items, chatting up customers, that grin never faltering. But now Daniel saw the cracks, the faint shadows under Ethan's eyes, the way his shoulders tensed when he thought no one was looking. He'd been here all day, same as yesterday, and Daniel hadn't seen him take more than a 5-minute break. How long had he been running on fumes, pouring himself out for strangers? Daniel needed more. He couldn't let this sit, not after what he'd heard. He waited till Ethan stepped away from the counter, swapping with another cashier for a quick breather, then followed him back to the break room. Ethan flopped into a chair, cracking open a soda, his grin flickering as he glanced up. "Hey, Dave still hanging in there?" he asked, his voice light but tired. Daniel nodded, sliding into the seat across from him, keeping his tone easy. "Yeah, man, just keeping up. You're a machine out there, though. Seriously, why you doing all that covering for folks, I mean? Ain't that rough on you?" Ethan took a sip, his grin softening into something smaller, more real. "Rough? Nah, not really. Like I said, some of 'em need it, like Mrs. Foster or that dad with the kids. They're good people. Just hit a bad stretch. I've been there. You know? Figure I can spare a few bucks to make their day better." Daniel's chest tightened, Ethan's words landing like a slow punch. Been there. There was a story behind that, buried under the kid's shrug, and Daniel felt it tugging at him. Been there how? He pressed, gentle but firm, leaning forward a bit. Ethan hesitated, his fingers tapping the can, then sighed, his eyes flicking to the table. "Lost my dad when I was 16, car accident. Mom took off after that, so it's just me and my little brother, Jake. Been hustling odd jobs ever since to keep us afloat. This gig's steady, but it ain't exactly a gold mine. Still I get by, and if I can help somebody else get by too, why not?" He shrugged again, like it was simple, but the weight in his voice said otherwise. Daniel sat back, stunned, a lump rising in his throat. Ethan, barely 20, orphaned, raising a kid brother, was out here giving more than he had. It hit hard, a mix of awe and shame washing over him. How had he missed this? He opened his mouth to say something, anything, but the break room door swung open, and Tom Riley, the grizzled stockroom guy, poked his head in. "Ethan, Clara needs you lines piling up." Ethan nodded, tossing his empty can in the trash and heading out, leaving Daniel alone with Tom. The older man lingered, his weathered face creasing as he glanced at Daniel. "You're the new guy, right? Dave?" Daniel nodded, seizing the chance. "Yeah, hey, Tom, what's Ethan's deal? Kid's out there playing Santa with his own cash." Tom chuckled, low and rough, then sobered quick. "Ethan's a good one, too good, maybe. Been taking care of his brother since he was a teenager. Works himself to the bone, never complains, even when he's running on empty. Worries me, he's always giving, but who's looking out for him?" Asterisk Daniel's gut twisted, Tom's words echoing Ethan's own. Been there, and painting a picture he couldn't unsee. Ethan wasn't just kind. He was a damn lifeline, running on grit and nothing else. "He ever say why?" Daniel asked, his voice quieter now. Tom shrugged, leaning against the doorframe. "Doesn't have to. He's been knocked down enough to know what it feels like. Guess he don't want to see anybody else stuck there." Daniel nodded slow, the pieces clicking into place, each one heavier than the last. He thanked Tom and stepped back onto the floor, his mind racing. Ethan was back at the register, ringing up a guy with a pack of smokes, that grin still holding strong. But now Daniel saw it, the strain behind it, the heart carrying it. The next day, day 3, Daniel came back early, the rain replaced by a gray, heavy sky that pressed down on Riverton. He worked the shelves again, sticking close to Ethan, watching the pattern repeat. A quiet discount here. An extra item slipped. In there, all from Ethan's own pocket. By closing time, Daniel couldn't sit on it anymore. He'd come to see the truth, and now it was staring him down. Ethan's kindness, his struggle, the gap between what Daniel thought he'd built and what was really happening. He had to act. As the last customer left and Clara flipped the sign to closed, Daniel called out, his voice steady but firm. "Hey, everybody mind sticking around a sec? Got something to say." The crew, Clara, Ethan, Tom, a handful of others gathered near the counter, their faces a mix of curiosity and fatigue after a long shift. Daniel stood in front of them, his heart pounding under the hoodie, and took a deep breath. "Hey, y'all," he started, pulling off his cap and running a hand through his messy hair. "Been working here a few days as Dave, but that ain't me. I'm Daniel Hayes, the guy who started Hayes Convenience." The room went dead silent, jaws dropping, eyes widening. Clara blinked, her clipboard slipping an inch. Ethan froze, his grin fading into shock, his hands still on the counter. "CEO?" Tom muttered, half to himself. "Yeah," Daniel said, shedding the hoodie and tossing it on a shelf, his voice carrying across the quiet store. "I came in undercover because I needed to see what's really going on. No reports, no filters. Just the truth. And I gotta say, this place, you folks, it's been a hell of an eye-opener." He turned to Ethan, meeting the kid's wide eyes. "Ethan, man, you blew me away. I saw you out there, covering for customers, giving when you didn't have to. Mrs. Foster, that single dad hell, half the regulars. You're not just working here, you're holding folks up. And I heard about your brother, what you've been carrying, that kind of heart. That's rare." Ethan shifted, his cheeks flushing, his voice small. I didn't do it for anybody to see, just, to help." Daniel nodded, stepping closer, his tone firm but warm. "I know, and that's why it matters. You've been looking out for everybody but yourself, and that stops now. I'm bumping you up to assistant manager, starting tomorrow, better pay, better hours. And your brother, Jake? I'm covering his school books, fees, whatever he needs. No arguments." Ethan's mouth dropped open, his eyes glistening, but Daniel wasn't done. "And one more thing starting next week. We're setting up a fund for all Hayes employees. Anybody hits a rough patch, we've got their back, 'cause that's what this place should have been all along." The room erupted gasps, murmurs, a slow clap from Tom that spread to the others. Clara beamed, her clipboard forgotten, while Ethan just stood there, stunned, shaking his head. "Mr. Hayes, I don't know what to say," he stammered. "I didn't do it for this." Daniel grinned, clapping him on the shoulder. "That's exactly why you're getting it, kid. You showed me what I'd forgotten. This ain't just a store. It's people. And I'm gonna make damn sure we don't lose that again." Ethan nodded, a shaky smile breaking through, and the crew swarmed him pats on the back, quiet cheers. Daniel stepped back, watching it unfold, the weight in his chest shifting, not gone, but different now, lighter. He'd come looking for cracks and found a spark, Ethan's heart burning bright in a place he'd let drift. This wasn't the end, it was a beginning. He'd built Hayes Convenience to serve, and now, thanks to a kid who gave more than he had, Daniel knew how to make it mean something again. Daniel Hayes stood in the quiet of Hayes Convenience after the reveal, the fluorescent lights buzzing faintly overhead as the crew dispersed into the Riverton night. The air still crackled with the energy of his announcement, Ethan Brooks's stunned grin, Clara Nguyen's wide-eyed nod, the slow clap from Tom Riley that had turned into a cheer. Daniel tugged his hoodie back on, the fabric worn and familiar, but his chest felt lighter than it had in years. Ethan's story, losing his dad, raising his brother, giving when he had nothing left, had hit him like a freight train, and his quiet acts of kindness had lit a fire Daniel couldn't ignore. He'd walked into store 3 looking for cracks. But what he'd found was a spark, a chance to rebuild what he'd let drift. The question now was how to fan it into something real, something lasting. He didn't head home that night. The Toyota stayed parked out front, and Daniel camped out in the small office above the store, a cramped space with a desk, a flickering lamp, and a window overlooking the floor. He called Laura Kim as the city settled into silence, her voice sharp through the line despite the hour. "Daniel? You still at the store? What's going on?" He leaned back, the chair creaking under him, and let it spill out Ethan's generosity, the reveal, the promises he'd made. "I'm staying put for a bit," he said, his voice steady. "Gotta make this right, not just for Ethan, for everybody. Clear my next month, Lavra. We're fixing this from the ground up." Lavra didn't hesitate, her keys already clicking. "Got it. What's the plan?" "Start with a training, push customer service, team support, the works," Daniel said. "And that fund I mentioned, get it rolling fast. I want it live by next week. Oh, and dig into Ethan's brother school stuff, whatever he needs. We're covering it." "On it," she said, a grin sneaking into her tone. "You're going all in, huh?" Daniel smirked, glancing out at the dark store below. "Yeah, should have done it sooner." He hung up, the silence settling in, but it wasn't heavy anymore. It was purposed up by morning. Daniel was back. On the floor, ditching the cap for a plain flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up as the store opened to the early crowd. Clara greeted him with a nervous smile, her clipboard clutched tight. "Mr. Hayes, Daniel, you're really sticking around?" she asked, her voice a mix of awe and uncertainty. "Yeah, Clara," he said, grabbing a stack of boxes to stock. "Call me Dan, we're in this together now. Let's make it work." She nodded, relaxing a bit, and put him to task alongside the crew, his hands moving fast as he watched the rhythm. Ethan at the register, Tom in the stockroom. The others buzzing through their shifts thought first move was Ethan's promotion. By noon, Daniel pulled him aside, the store humming around them. "You're assistant manager now," he said, handing Ethan a new name tag, the title etched under his name. "Better pay kicks in tomorrow, $18 an hour, plus a bonus to get you started. And Jake's school? I've got Larva on it, tuition, books, whatever. Done." Ethan blinked, his grin faltering into shock. "Dan, I don't know what to say. I didn't expect." "You don't gotta say anything," Daniel cut in, clapping his shoulder. "You earned it, showed me what this place can be. Just keep doing you, all right?" Ethan nodded, a shaky laugh breaking through. "Yeah, I will." Next came the crew. Daniel sat down with Clara that afternoon, sketching out a training. Planned 2 days with a pro Laura brought in, a guy named Pete who turned around retail joints across Riverton. Pete rolled in the next morning, a wiry man with a clipboard and a no-nonsense vibe, running the team through drills. How to spot a struggling customer, how to keep the vibe warm, how to lean on each other. Daniel joined in, stacking shelves. While Pete talked, his eyes on Ethan as the kid soaked it up, already stepping into his new role. "It's not just about selling stuff," Pete said, his voice cutting through the store. "It's about seeing people macking and feel like they belong here." Ethan nodded, chiming in soft. "That's what I've been trying, just didn't know how to say it." Week 2, Daniel threw a curveball. Hayes Day. He pitched it to Clara over coffee, the store quiet before the rush. Free samples, discounts for regulars, a little something for anybody who's struggling, he said. Let's show Riverton what we're about." Clara hesitated, her brow creasing. "That's gonna cost, up Q might flip." Daniel grinned, leaning back. "I am HQ, Clara. We're doing it. Ethan's calling the shots on this one." She laughed, shaking her head, and got to work. Hayes Day hit on Saturday, the store packed locals swarming for free coffee and pastries. Ethan handing out extra snacks to kids and folks who looked like they needed it. Daniel jumped in, manning the hot case, slipping a free sandwich to a guy in a frayed coat. By sundown, they'd cleared a small profit word of mouth spiking sales, and the buzz online was electric. Hayes Convenience feels like home now. The fund launched that Monday, a pool of cash Daniel seeded with his own money, matched by a chunk of store profits. He rolled it out in a quick meeting. The crew gathered near the counter. "Anybody hits a rough spot, medical, rent, whatever, this is for you," he said. "No questions, no red tape. We're a team means we've got each other." Tom grunted approval. Clara's eyes lit up, and Ethan just nodded, quiet but steady. A cashier piped up, hesitant. What if it's not enough? Daniel met her. "Gaze. Then we make it enough. This ain't a one-off, it's how we roll now." The room settled, a new energy humming through it. Not everything clicked smooth. A couple old-timers guys set in their ways grumbled about the changes. "Too soft," one muttered, tossing boxes in the stockroom. "This ain't a charity, it's a store." Daniel overheard, stepping in close. "It's both," he said, his voice firm. "You don't like it, door's there. We're here to serve, not just sell." One quit by week's end. The other stayed, grudgingly adapting. Ethan stepped up fast-running shifts with Clara, coaching the newbies, his quiet grit shining through. Daniel caught him one night, locking up after a long day, and asked, "You holding up with all this?" Ethan grinned, tired but real. "Yeah, feels good, you know? Like I'm not just scrapping by anymore." Clara softened too, her clipboard less a shield now, her chats with the crew warmer. Daniel saw it in the little things, her slipping Ethan a coffee during a rush, checking in with Tom about his bad knee. The store shifted, customers lingered longer, regulars started smiling back, reviews popping up. "Best spot in Riverton, folks here actually care." Daniel felt it too, working the floor. Hearing a mom thank Ethan for an extra juice box, seeing Mrs. Foster leave with a loaf she didn't have to beg for. It wasn't perfect money, was tight some days. The pace brutal, but it was alive, real. The way he dreamed it once. A month in, Daniel stood by the counter one evening, the store winding down, watching Ethan train a new kid on the register. "Keep it simple, smile. Listen, help if you can," Ethan said, his voice steady, echoing what Daniel had seen that first day. Clara swung by, handing Daniel a coffee. "You've changed this place, Dan," she said, her tone soft but sure. "Feels different better." He nodded, sipping the brew, the warmth settling into him. "Wasn't me, it was Ethan. Kid reminded me what I forgot." She smiled, heading off, and Daniel lingered, the store's hum wrapping around him like an old song. He'd come to fix a crack and found a foundation one worth building on. 6 months had rolled by since that first Undercover day, and Daniel Hayes stood outside Hayes Convenience in Riverton, the late afternoon sun dipping low, painting the storefront in shades of gold and amber. The air carried a chill, the edge of autumn brushing through the city, and the big glass windows gleamed with new vinyl decals touting Ethan's daily deals, a nod to the kid who turned this place around. Daniel slid his hands into his jacket pockets, a faint smile, tugging at his lips as he watched a steady stream of customers flow in and out, some grabbing coffee, others chatting with the crew like old friends. The store hummed, steady and bright, and for the first time in a decade, it felt like the dream he'd started with a place that didn't just sell stuff, but lifted people up. He pushed through the door, the bell jingling soft and the familiar. Rush hit him, coffee brewing, the faint sizzle of the hot case, voices weaving through the air. The aisles were busy, locals picking up snacks, a mom with a toddler grabbing juice boxes, an old guy in a worn cap nodding at the counter. Ethan Brooks stood there, his assistant manager tag gleaming under the lights, ringing up a sale with that same easy grin Daniel had clocked on day one. "Hey, "Mr. Riley, how's the knee holding up?" Ethan asked, bagging a sandwich for Tom, who'd swapped his stockroom apron for a regular spot since his retirement last month. "Better than my patience with this line," Tom grunted, but his grin betrayed him. Ethan laughed, slipping an extra pack of gum into the bag. "Let me keep that temper in check." Daniel drifted closer, catching Ethan's eye. "Boss man," Ethan called out, his grin widening. "Didn't know you were swinging, but I thought you were off running the empire." Daniel chuckled, leaning against a shelf. "Gotta check my star player, right? How's it going?" Ethan nodded, proud but steady. "Good, real good. Sales are up, crew's tight, and Jake's killing it at school. Says he's gonna be an engineer or something. All 'cause of you." Daniel waved it off, but the warmth in his chest spread. "Nah, kid, you lit the fire. I just fanned it." The store had changed since that night 6 months back more than Daniel had dared hope. Sales were up 20%, foot traffic steady, reviews popping online. Hayes Convenience feels like family now. Ethan had stepped into his role smooth-running shifts with Clara Nguyen, tweaking the menu with cheap, hearty specials for Riverton's working crowd. The fun Daniel set up had taken off to helping a cashier with a busted car, covering Tom's meds before he retired, even pitching in for a stalker's kid's school trip. Clara swung by, her clipboard swapped for a coffee cup, her smile warmer than it had ever been. "Dan, you see the numbers?" "We're crushing it," she said, her voice bright. "All 'cause you stuck around." Daniel shook his head, sipping his own coffee. "Wasn't me, it was us. Ethan showed me what I'd lost sight of. You kept it rolling. Team effort." She nodded, heading off to check the coolers, and Daniel's gaze drifted to the counter where Ethan coached a new hire. Teenage girl with nervous hands. "Keep it simple, smile. Listen, help if you can," Ethan said, his tone steady, echoing the lessons he'd lived before Daniel ever walked in. It hit him then. Ethan wasn't just managing. He was building something, passing on what he'd taught Daniel without even knowing it. He'd stayed in Riverton longer than planned. Months stretching into 6, pouring himself into Store 3. Not just to fix it, but to make it a model. The training stuck, the fun grew, and Hayes Day became a monthly thing, free snacks. A little extra for anyone who needed it, pulling crowds and loyalty alike. Ethan's brother, Jake, stopped by sometimes, a lanky 14-year-old with a backpack and a shy grin, thanking Daniel for the school help with a quiet, "Means a lot, mister." The crew had gelled 2 new faces blending with the old, a rhythm that felt less like a grind and more like a heartbeat. Daniel pulled out his phone, dialing Laura Kim as the store pulsed around him. The noise a comfort now. "Dan," Lavra answered, her voice crisp over the line. "Riverton still got you hooked?" He grinned, stepping outside to the cool dusk. "Yeah, this place is gold now. Ethan's running it like a pro. Numbers are solid. Time to spread this out, hit the other spots." She laughed soft. "Knew you'd flip it? Next move?" Daniel's eyes traced the storefront, the decals glowing against the fading light. "Portland's first, then Seattle, Denver. Same play. Going quiet, see what's real, build it right. But this time, we start with the crew no drifting away again." "Smart," Lavra said, keys clicking. "I'll set it up when you heading out." "Next week," Daniel said, his gaze lingering on Ethan through the glass, the kid laughing with a customer. "Gotta wrap this up first." He hung up, pocketing the phone, and leaned against the Toyota. The old car's still his ride for these runs. 6 months ago, he'd walked in chasing a hunch, stumbled into Ethan's quiet courage, and now it was more than a chain. It was a promise kept, a lesson carved deep. You don't build alone, and you don't forget the ones holding it up. Portland was next. He'd slip in low-key again, ears open, but Riverton had given him the map, and he wasn't losing it again. Daniel Hayes' ride through Hayes Convenience isn't just a boss's tale. It's a raw slice of what happens when you stop looking at numbers and start seeing people. He kicks off with a itch, a whisper that his empire's lost its soul, and dives in, cap low, to hear the truth straight from the floor. That's the first takeaway. Real leaders don't sit pretty. They get in the dirt, feel the pulse. Ethan hits him with a jolt-giving when he's got nothing, carrying a load that'd break most, and Daniel could have nodded and walked, but he stays, owns it, builds from it. That's the heart, seeing the good in your people and lifting it up, not because it's easy, because it's right. The story's soul is in the shift. Ethan's grit turning a store into a lifeline. Daniel learning that profit aren't the point if the crew's sinking. It's human as hell, showing how one kid's quiet moves can ripple out, change a whole damn chain. Daniel started with a dream convenience, sure, but it's Ethan's hustle, Clara's buy-in, the team's grit that make it real. The lesson? Don't let the climb blind you. See the ones busting ass beside you, or you're just stacking cash on quicksand. Hayes Convenience went from a pit stop to a place with a pulse, and that's the gold legacy isn't logos. It's lives. This isn't just a yarn to kill time. It's a mirror for anybody running a gig, leading a crew, or chasing a goal. You gotta show up, spot the spark, and make it mean something. Not because it's clean, but because it's true. That's why we're dropping these tailies on legacy stories, to spark that fire, to share joints that hit deep and stick. Love Daniel turning Ethan's heart into a win? Want to hear more about folks facing the grind, flipping the script, building legacies that hold? Hit that subscribe on Legacy Stories, join the squad, drop your take, share it with your crew. Thanks for riding with us. Catch you next round, where the stakes rise and the heart digs deeper.